Hey guys, it's Aaron from Total Brakes. Today we're at VIR and we will be installing some Girodisc rotors front and rear on this 2001 996 Carrera 4. We're doing that because we're going to be doing some track days with this car, and also we'll be attending a SCCA hill climb. So we want to get rid of the stock drilled rotors, go to a nice two-piece rotor that will offer superior cooling. Also, in this application, the front Girodisc rotors are going to be 340 millimeters, whereas the stock ones are 317. So we'll be using a spacer to space the caliper out that is included with the rotors from Girodisc. And then in the rear, we'll be going to a 325 millimeter rotor. The factory is a 298. So we'll be going to a larger rotor, better cooling, two-piece design. We'll have to get some weights to see whether going larger with the two-piece design is lighter. I assume it will be, but we'll have to see. Also, we do have one of the stud kits for the calipers, which basically converts the bolt-on system from the caliper to a stud kit design. So we'll be installing that on the front, and on the rear we'll be using the extended bolts with spacers that Girodisc includes. So it is an upgrade to go to the studs. Some people like them, some people don't. We just want to show both options. So with all of that being said, we're going to get the wheels off of this, and it's a pretty simple procedure. No modifications are necessary, and it's 100% reversible. So we're going to install some wheel studs too here while we're at it. Simply, we remove the wheel bolts and we take some red Loctite, apply them to the end of these studs. We like to use these studs that have the Allen fittings on the end, so you don't have to double bolt. The torque spec will be posted below for this Porsche application. Please check your specific installation application for torque information, and keep in mind that not all vehicles will use these easy to install studs. Some of them will have to come in through the back of the hub. On the Porsches, these tend to be really easy. They make it much easier to install and remove tires or wheels, so you're not fiddling around with the wheel trying to line up your bolt holes, and plus they look really cool. So check it out. That's it. We have different lengths available. These are the standard 45 millimeter lengths that we find work really well. They do make 90 millimeter lengths. If you have a wheel spacers, take that into consideration. Although, as you can see, these 45s are pretty long. So I think 90 is a bit excessive, and 45 is just about right. So we'll get these torqued up, and then we'll put on our nuts. And just wanted to show you a quick how-to on wheel studs. Totally worth it in my opinion, especially if you're doing a lot of wheel and tire changes. So now that we have the wheels removed, we'll remove the calipers or break them free to start with. You're either going to have a 10 millimeter Allen or a T55 Torx, depending on if these bolts have been upgraded on your car or not. We're not going to worry about that since we will be using new bolts, or in this case, we'll be using a stud kit on the front and then the Girodisc extended bolts on the rear. Once I break those free, I would like to get the hard line is attached to the upright here with a 10 millimeter nut. So we'll want to get that nut out of the way so that we can swing this caliper off and give us access to remove this old rotor and install our new one. There are 2 Phillips head screws here. We'll want to go ahead and remove those as well. And after we get the caliper off, we'll pull the rotor off, and then we will install our stud kit on the front. We'll show you how that works. We'll go to the back and do the same. All of this is 100% reversible, and you can do with some basic hand tools. So here we have the front rotors. Just wanted to show you some differences. This car already had Girodisc on the front. We just wanted to show a basic install procedure. The car has been washed, that's why these are rusty. So here's the original front. You can see it's drilled. This one's got a pretty big lip on it. As you can see, obviously, 2-piece rotor, 1-piece rotor. This is a iron hat. This is aluminum, so it's gonna save some weight. Diameters. Flip this over. So as we can see, it's slightly bigger. I want to say it was on the front rotors. It's about a 23 millimeter difference, which is just under an inch. So we'll get some more braking torque. We're going to get the studs installed, reinstalled on the front of this. We'll show you how that works. Get the rotor on, and get this front finished up and go to the rear. So probably the number one question I get with these two-piece rotors is how much weight is it going to save? So we're going to find that out here on this application. Let's take our factory rotor. It's our left rear scale. 17 pounds. That's a pretty worn rotor, although I doubt I wore 5 pounds off of it. This is also a used rotor. 17 pounds. So on this application, I would gather to say you increase in overall diameter, but you don't gain any weight. Not bad for going up an inch in diameter, getting some more braking torque. So we'll do the rears when we get to the installation on those. We don't have the rear rotors off yet to show you. So we'll be installing these studs. You also take note, we have our caliper hanging with zip ties. We find that the easiest. So these studs will go in. They have a little bit of Loctite on them. They have an 8 millimeter hex on the end to torque them to spec. So we get these in, we'll get them torqued, and what happens next is we put these spacers over. These are 12 millimeter spacers. These will space the caliper out, allow us to run the larger rotor. And then there will be 2 washers and studs that hold the caliper on. The torque specs are different, so we'll post those below than the factory. And we'll get the rotor on, the caliper on, and this installation on this corner will be done. So here at the rear, it's pretty much going to be the same process. 2 10 millimeter Allens or T55. If you have your brake pad sensor still in place, you'll need to loosen that wire here so we can pull this caliper off. You do not need to free the brake line here, as it is attached to the hard line is attached to the back of the caliper. There's a bracket on it. We'll take that off. I typically set the caliper up here. Same process, 2 Phillips head screws. Get this rusty cross-drilled rotor off, and we'll be installing this lovely new Girodisc 2-piece assembly here. So one thing we'd like to point out real quick is which side these rotors go on. This is the right rear rotor. You want these vanes spinning into your motion of travel. As you can see, this rotor is slightly different than the front. The front are old rotors we've had on this car for a while. These are the newer design that came out in the summer of 2023. They have a curved vane design and they have a black hat. The old style was a gray anodized hat with straight vanes. So if you do have the old style hat, you can upgrade next time you need to change your rotor rings, the outer ring portion. They're interchangeable. It's a cosmetic difference. Other than that, there's nothing else to note. We will do a video on how to replace the rotor rings. The fronts have about half a season on them, so we'll get those changed out when we start seeing some significant cracks. We'll talk about that in a future video as well. So we're gonna get this mounted up and slip the caliper over. So another nice thing about the studs is the studs will hold the rotor, and basically we'll take this handy dandy hardware, drop it on the floor, and same principle as the front. We're going to use this to space the caliper out. So this bolt will go through the caliper and then through this and then into the hub. So that's it. We'll use the correct torque spec on these as well. We'll post that below for you, and that's all you really need to do on the rear. So we're looking forward to testing these out. We'll be on track. We'll give you some feedback, get some pads bedded in. We'll do a pad video next, and we're glad that you could watch along. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, totalbrakes.com. and we'll see you at the track soon. Thanks.